talk about a top censored news. That guy lived the top censored news. And it was so great, to bring a lot of his work to the table. My second most watched show on the Truth Wire, we featured Ryan's work. We piggyback off his work on Epstein because he did solid work on that as well. But he doesn't get lost off in the trust the plan, the Q-tards they like to be called, the 8D chess that people are saying. He's calling it what it is, and that's the great thing about Ryan CRISTIÁN, The Last American Vagabond.
Well, without further ado, let's bring him in. Ryan CRISTIÁN, welcome back to the show.
Pleasure to be here, guys. How are you?
Great.
Good to see you both again.
With us. Yeah, doing great. This is an interesting time because, as Craig indicated earlier, the work you've been doing all this time on Epstein, going down these rabbit holes. I mean, calling out Israel. That's the part I think that does get lost in this, because we know the list. They're telling us the list doesn't exist. They're telling us he killed himself. People are furious. A lot of MAGAs are stepping up and standing up, which good for them for doing that. The part that gets lost was that part, and we all saw the Pam Bondi moment where she had to kind of stutter her way through the answer. But the question was that the reporter asked her was, where's the connection with the like who's behind him? Like what's up with that? What agency? Talking about the Mossad. She says, "Oh, I'll get back to you on that one." But as we know, that no one's going to be getting back to us on that part. But I guess that's the part I think when we step out of it, look at it from an outside view and see the work you've been doing. I think that's the most dangerous part to not be talking about right now. I think so. I would like to pass it to you, Ryan, and where you're at with everything that's been going down this last week with those apparent Epstein files that don't exist.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first and foremost, as always, I think the person to go to on this would be Whitney Webb, to check out her books, make sure you understand what she's been breaking down, more than anybody else in the conversation. Let's be clear about that. Despite, rumblings of other things, she is clearly, in my opinion, the lead person to look to on this conversation. But, it's clear that this is a deception. I mean, like you said, it's fracturing the movement at the moment. And I think it's very obvious. I mean, despite the effort to try to kind of like hide that, it's very clear that this is, they set themselves up to fail, which is why I can't help but ask, if there's something else driving what they're doing right now at the expense of Americans. But the clear reality that they built this, they drove the idea that this was what was happening, that we were going to expose this, and then Bondi makes very clear statements about what she was looking at, not the on my desk part, but what she was looking at, the different videos. I just referenced today on the show a post from Dr. Shiva that referenced the actual court documents and links to them and everything that show that what they claim is in the files that they have are all sorts of things that are well beyond what they claim is happening. And we're talking about files they claim. And so did Bondi, by the way, of trafficking, of sexual abuse of children by adults, all sorts of horrible things. And even Bondi referenced that. And now we're saying it's a hoax. That now Obama single-handedly. I mean, there's many ways to go in this conversation, but just right there, it's like, my God, that's why people started going, okay, what is he in these files? What's he covering for? It could be that. Wouldn't surprise me at all. Could be somebody else, as you point to do. And let's be clear, by the way, Mossad and CIA, it's obvious there's connections to both as far as I can tell, but it's also probably more than that. As Whitney talked about the tri-national, like multinational security state of what has kind of developed over the, long periods of time. But the point being is that very obviously Acosta was told to back, what did he say? What was the actual phrase? Not to back off, but to, basically paraphrasing, to let it rest because he was intelligence. That was the stated quote he gave when interviewed for the Trump administration. And I guess that was good for them because they brought him on the team, right? And then he let that out in an interview in front of the press briefing. And so now, that we know this. And yet now they're trying to say it's a hoax. Now they're trying to go out of their way to try to make this about some other manufactured thing using what we know was a manufactured thing, which is the Russiagate hoax. But as I just talked with Misty, on Jimmy Dore show yesterday, that she's calling it the reverse Russiagate, which is exactly what it seems to be, right? You're using the same kind of, the point being is that we all sense that there's not going to be any accountability. I saw you wrote that on the image, that no one's going to get arrested. It's like, I'm not going to say I know that. If he gets arrested tomorrow, I will go, hell yeah. I don't know if I'm cussing the show, but yes, that's a good thing. I'm glad to see it happen. But it doesn't then hide that they're covering up the Epstein files. But I really don't think that Obama or anybody, maybe a lackey of some kind, that's actually going to go to jail, because the thing that everyone's certain to point out is that the logical point of, let's say, why Biden or whoever else didn't release it before, because I point out that they're probably all on this list, or if not, they're all on the same team. So that's just how I see it all. But there's 1,000 different directions we could go in. So I'll throw it back to you.
Yeah, no.
By the way, I'd like to say there's already been 275 victims that have been paid out from different banks. I believe Deutsche Bank was one, JP Morgan Chase.
Right.
So we already know that this is not a hoax whatsoever. And in fact, both Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein have been technically charged for trafficking children, right? Ghislaine pleaded guilty. We had the case, the sweet deal with Acosta. Of course, when we heard in that press conference that he was not to be touched. That was he in the press conference. I don't know what he said. He was questioned in the press conference. I think he said it outside the press conference to
that was in the meeting with the Trump administration. He alluded the same thing in the press conference.
But Jason Burmis often talks like there's no list per se. There's just a bunch of information. You had talked about some of the stuff that Pam Bondi said she had on her desk with when it came to videos and emails and whatnot. What technically do you think should be released to the public out there? Shouldn't they release every single email, every single phone call, every single video, everything they had to technically see who these, for Ghislaine Maxwell going to jail for trafficking children to nobody is?
Well, so the first point, I think I'm going to forget your second question, but the first point with Jason Burmis saying there's no list. I agree with the sentiment, right? The idea is, I would say that we don't know. There obviously could be some kind of compilation list of everyone they traffic to. I find that hard to believe. The point, though, is that what we want is the information that they have, and you can call it a list of the people that we know are, like to your point of Ghislaine Maxwell, right? Okay, so you can't charge her with trafficking and then claim it's a hoax about that people were trafficked to. So then what is she being charged with, right? It's not that she's not being charged with possession of child porn. She's being charged with trafficking. And so the point is, when he put that out, which I think he stumbled, I think he shot himself in the foot with that, because that's what Trump does, is that the lawyers were like, okay. And so now Ghislaine, however you want to say it, the lawyers come out and say, okay, well then we're appealing this, because if you're claiming it's a hoax, then what is she in jail for? And so now it's clearly kind of, maybe there's more design there that I'm seeing. But what's interesting is now it's come to where they're talking behind the scenes. Well, there's two parts. They just, they're trying to get her to come in front of the House to speak in front of Congress. The Trump administration is trying to get her to go behind the scenes and speak with the DOJ. As even Whitney recently tweeted about, it seems, I agree with her, it's most likely that they're going to make some kind of a deal behind the scenes that doesn't let what they don't want to come out, and that she doesn't have to go back to jail. That's what I get. If it has to come in front of Congress, even Jones is trying to lay cover already and going, she's going to lie about Trump. It's like, it's clear what's going on, but I don't know why we would assume that, but I think that's where this is going. And so the point is, clearly, if there's the only thing you can clearly see at this point, I shouldn't say the only thing, but the most easy thing to see, it's obviously not a hoax. If now we're going to go in front of Congress and they're discussing appointing a prosecutor and they're talking about a grand jury, so you have to take a step back and go, that is wildly conspicuous. He called it a hoax. He's saying the people that believe that it's not are weaklings and troublemakers and Democrats. He seems wildly desperate around this, but it could be because he's being pressured by somebody who, holds his leash, if you want to look at it that way. Or maybe he's on it. I really don't know. But and what was the second part, Pasta? I'm sorry.
Well, you did go into as Ghislaine was trafficking children to nobody, and how could they go along with that? Wasn't that the second part of the question I said, or am I?
I don't know. I forgot.
You do this all the time.
About the first part when you were saying the second part, then I was like, I realized I didn't even hear it.
I'm trying to get back to just asking one question at a time, not two. But when you're here, I get excited, and there's so much to ask. Go ahead, Matt.
There's so much going on, guys. It's all connected, man. It's all connected. Well, we saw this connection. Now you've mentioned, Ryan, the part about calling it the hoax, and that doesn't seem to stick at all. Especially now he's at the point of like the Hillary Clinton point, calling deplorables. It's like you're telling your own base horrible idiot people. But remember also with the hoax garbage, he said it's a Democrat hoax. Right. And so this part doesn't make any sense. We talk about how does damage control work? Is he just like making this up as he goes? But who told him to add Democrat? And I think after we saw what's happening now with bringing up Russiagate again and Tulsi going after Obama, it might have been a way to kind of plant a seed that Democrats are always up to no good, because we do know that is actually a paper trail that does check out, that there actually is Russiagate is real. So is that maybe that's what he's doing, attempting to conflate Russiagate with Epstein and then kind of confuse people, get them all mixed up, but get his base angry and more importantly, distracted from Epstein. Is that working right now? Have we seen a little bit of a distraction, kind of a short-term memory hold on Trump voters who forgot they were just called horrible people and now want to see Obama in handcuffs? Is that working?
Probably for some. I don't think it's really, even the ones that believe that that's the case, want to see that happen, are still going, what about Epstein? You know, but just to be clarified, the way that was said, just when in regard to Russiagate is real, I'm not sure if maybe we disagree. My point would be that Russiagate was a psyop. It was, you know, and I think
that's what I'm saying. The psyop was real.
That's what I thought. Real in the sense that it's important that we highlight. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes. No, that he's comparing it to something that you can hold people accountable that did do shady stuff.
Right. Okay, good. We're on the same page. I just want to make sure that was clear. That the way it sounded might think that, you know, that the case that they was Russia influencing him was real. But so we're on the same page, that it's important to call this out, as it always was. And I think everybody already knows that was a manufactured manipulation. And yes, Obama should be in jail. I think they're all monsters. I will cheer it on when it happens. But whether it's playing people is I think it's not. Let's just make it that, like, in a general sense, I don't think it's enough to deviate from, you know, like the central thing, you know, in regard to just not even just Epstein, but the larger point of like child trafficking, pedophilia, a huge point for the conservative side. And now you're saying it's not even real in the case of Epstein, which was the largest provable example we've seen. It's not something's happening clearly. But the Obama part of it is so interesting because, you know, you're as you were mentioning, and this is what I saw right away, is that he was already going that direction, right? Oh, it's fake, just like the Russiagate hoax. And then like 2 days later, this all comes out. Yeah. Like you can't, even if it's exactly what it looks like, which in some cases it is, it's so contrived, it's obvious. And then to our point in the beginning, I don't think anyone's going to get held accountable anyway, because they never do. Like, oh, here, one last point, like Hillary, who we've seen before, like with the people from Boston and pay to play. They never went to jail despite the provable evidence. And now, even I think just before I went live, I saw a post from Alex Jones making the same case. Not, you know, we're going to go after Obama this time, not like he failed on Clinton. Like, they're so clearly trying to keep people motivated. We're going to do this. We're going to win, even though everything's falling in front of them. You know, bigger government, more spending, mRNA shots. I mean, it's just, it's people are starting to wake up to it.
Palantir, track and trace systems into play, Larry Ellison, real IDs, all that stuff going on, bombing Iran.
I mean, I'm forgetting half of this stuff. I'm like, oh, it's right, real ID too. It's just real ID.
You have to get it. I mean, it's happening right now under Donald Trump. And really, to tell you the truth, it's crazy to me because we see the same type of circus act all over again in WWE. It's like they take turns being the bad guy. The two-party illusion is one of the best phrases out there because it is just an illusion. In the election integrity world, there's some exciting stuff going on. I told you about with Clint Curtis, and I'm going to share that. But the problem is, right now you have an election integrity movement that's pretty much driven by Trumpers, and they still are partisan. And as you know, elections are nonpartisan. They can't be partisan whatsoever. But the funny thing is they want to concentrate and talk about 2020. And they have this vengeance out there. And it really, seeing Tulsi Gabbard come out there and say, we're going to go after Obama, that's still in the election integrity movement, right? But I would argue that, you know, Obama should have went after George W. Bush for his war crimes. He didn't. And they do the same thing every time. They pass the buck. They don't go after each other. And that's why Donald Trump is not going to go after Obama the same way Obama didn't go after W. Bush. When it comes to elections, everyone sits there and scream about 2020. But the Republicans don't want to talk about what happened in 2000 with George W. Bush in Florida. They want to talk about what happened in 2004 with George W. Bush and John Kerry in Ohio when they were stealing elections. Because the big problem is, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Ryan, I'd love to hear your opinion. I'm not so mad that people are still buying into Donald Trump. I mean, the Alex Jones situation is embarrassing at this point. Like, you're embarrassing yourself. Alex Jones, Steve Bannon, you're embarrassing yourself. This kind of the cuck of the week, or the way you're glorifying this guy no matter what happens. But I'm mad that people are buying still into the two-party illusion, the two-party system. That's what worries me right now. And they're doing that and using Trump as that vessel for still believing in the two-party solution and the two-party institutions. What are your thoughts with that?
Well, I mean, I think it's breaking down. I mean, I just had an interview with James Lee about that. Like, it has Epstein and the story around this broken the partisan mold. And it's not just Epstein. Obviously, you know, the Israel genocide is a huge part, going back to COVID-19 before it. Like, we've had kind of a cascading of like failed efforts to control the narrative. And I think it's just one by one beginning to shake people out of this. And that doesn't mean they're not still conservative or even still believe in Donald Trump, but they're just no longer bound by this. I mean, a lot of them, the blind support, which is what you get from the, you know, Eagle Gunthermans or whatever his name is, or the Cat Turds, like people that are just like their job seems to like manufacture, we're all winning and everything's great. Like it's like they're the living embodiment of that meme of the house burning down. This is fine. That's their job is to be like, everything's great all the time, you know? And I think that's what they're doing. And so I do think that there's things are always shifting. But I'm of the mind and have been, as you know, for a long time, well back in COVID, that the partisan element of this is starting to break down. And I think that's why a lot of this is happening the way it is. I know some people disagree with that. At the very least, we can see that that people are asking questions from the partisan perspective that I've never seen them ask before. So maybe it's isolated, but I think it's a bigger point. But back to the president point you made, is that, I agree with you. It's interesting to see the precedent of like, they never really break that, where they don't go back and investigate, because my argument was that they'll, likely then be investigated themselves. Right. But I think Trump, at least, unless it was part of some larger ploy they were all a lot aware of, already kind of broke that, didn't he? Right. Like he's already, whether it's about Biden or just the different things Trump has done, it seemed, or even in regard to him. Right. So he was investigated and he was charged with all these things. So I think there's a little bit of a nuance there that maybe we are seeing something different, and maybe we will see Obama go to jail or get investigated. I mean, my gut tells me no, but I'm just seeing the opening for that to happen seems more likely today than ever. One, because we've seen that already kind of get mixed up, the point you're making, but also because I think it's not about the U.S. government. I think it's about something else. I think whether they're going after Obama or whatever they're doing is about covering for the large thing we're discussing, this, albatross, like the, as Charlie Robinson always points out, that a black hole, that the only reason or the argument in some cases they claim they know it's there is not because they can see it, but because they can see how it's affecting the things around it. Right. And so he makes this great point about that, you can't always see that, but you can see all the moving parts, all the different anti-Semitism, all the different things that are driving all this. I just watched the German government claim, or rather, an Israeli propagandist promoting the idea that the German government is now saying you can't deny the state of Israel can exist, or you have to defend its right to exist in order to gain German citizenship. It's things like that you go, what? Like you can come in there going, nobody else should exist in the world except Israel and Germany. And they'll go, come on in, but if you go against Israel, you're not allowed. That's that larger point. There's clear something, influencing everything. It's important to see.
Yeah. Matt, what's the name of the show? You got to burst Ryan's bubble.
We got it. Hold on.
What's the name of this show?
This is The Homeless Left.
No, what's the name of the episode?
The episode? Well, I was getting to this. We're calling this Nobody's Going to Jail.
Yeah, that's what I was referencing before. I saw the graphic.
Yeah. So and the reason why we know this, and even though you're showing some optimism, and I do appreciate that, and there's, if Obama goes away in handcuffs, great, but the reason I'm not holding my breath is because the pattern is it's the same thing over and over and over. Right. Talking about it, pursuing it, it never happens. Nobody in power ever goes to jail. The best we get is a fall guy that we get told they're the bad apple. Everything's business as usual, but it's never somebody too high up. And the best, so we get those once in a while. You get like a Harvey Weinstein, right? You'll get these characters,
or
you'll get your Bernie Madoff, right? You'll get your one character that we're told, if it wasn't for them, everything would have been on the up and up. But we got rid of that. So that's the best we get. But nobody actually committing the crimes. The conspiracy to commit the crimes, the levels of the crimes, nobody ever goes to jail, even though we have all the evidence for it, which we've had. So let's remind people, we've had the Russiagate evidence the entire time. So this isn't like new, like Tulsi saying, we have this whole thing, we worked it out on the chalkboard and we connected no, we knew Obama was part of that. We knew Hillary.
They did add new points, to be fair, but I agree with you. It didn't, in my opinion, didn't change the material reality of the situation.
The loaded gun, the smoking gun was still the smoking gun. And by the way, Matt, just to piggyback, Bernie Madoff went to jail because he stole from rich people.
Yeah, right. Well, to add to that point, though, I'm glad you could point out Dennis Hastert, for example, right? A second in line to the president as the Speaker of the House, and called a serial child molester by and he was Republican, by the judge. Or you could point to a JFK example, right? There are anomalies to it where you see these things happen. My argument would be that's because the element that controls the, whether it's sexual blackmail or whatever we're talking about, it doesn't have to be Israel and Zionism. That's just what my opinion would be.
Sure.
That there's something that is dictating these things. And, suddenly JFK wants to expose their military program. JFK wants to register AIPAC as a foreign agent, and then JFK goes away, right? Or Hassert is an interesting overlap. I mean, there's points that we could make, it'd be my opinion, but it's interesting to see him kind of plucked out and charged with something like that. And it could just be that he was so obvious, he went back to when he was a teacher or a gym teacher, that maybe that just happened on its own. Maybe local police got involved. Like they can make that happen. But I think the example is that there is a higher level of influence that can just say, well, you go outside the game and we're going to pull you out of it. It's sort of like a mafia enforcing on itself kind of thing,
Yeah. So I'm going to bring one up that's very recent that we kind of skipped over. And I did bring this up on Truthwire with you, Craig, but I found the clip because it's not so far in the distant past. We're not talking about, going back to Russiagate right now. We're talking about that RFK Jr. literally sat in the office there with Trump and the whole gang on live TV and told us after an investigation into the HHS that it was 100% confirmed that Biden, his team with the HHS previously had participated in child sex trafficking, and there were 300,000 kids missing. But he got rid of all the bad people. They're all cleared out, and we're going to start fresh. So I want to know, and we'll hear him say for himself, here's the clip. And then I want to know, where's the follow through with this? Why is there nobody in jail for this? If he's so 100% sure that he got to the bottom of it, here it is.
We have ended HHS as the role as the vector, the principal vector in this country for child trafficking. And during the Biden administration, HHS became a collaborator in child trafficking and for sex and for slavery. And we have ended that, and we're very aggressively going out and trying to find these children, the 300,000 children that were lost by the Biden administration.
So that's it. We're trying to find the children. They're missing, but we took care of the problem. They're out. Really? So if Biden's people were participating in this and doing this,
who are they?
Where's the charge? Where's the people going away in handcuffs? So again, there's a system in place designed to say, we found the problem, and we fixed it. Let's move on. And it's like, once in a while you say, hey, let's lock her up. Now it's lock him up. But nobody gets actually locked up. And this is another example. And nobody's following up with RFK on this. Hey, what happened to the Biden team that did this? You just cleared them out and said, go home. No hard feelings.
Yeah.
Well, and can I also piggyback really quickly before you go, Ryan? Just also to add to that, they keep saying that, they want to act like immigration or migration to this country was a problem when it was just Biden. It's been going on for years. Presidents before we've had mass migration to this country. It didn't just start with Biden. And same thing with the sex trafficking. This predates way before Joe Biden. The fact that they're playing this partisan fucking hackery to make sure that people go take a side, red team, blue team, because now what are the Democrats doing? You couldn't talk about Epstein back in the days in 2017 around Democrats. You weren't allowed to. At the Bernie Sanders diner, they told me, you're not allowed to talk about that. You're helping Donald Trump and hurting the Democrats. Now they want to sing it because it's using against Donald Trump. So we get caught in this spiral, this death spiral, and nothing ever gets done, and nobody ever goes to jail. Anyway,
which is the point. Yeah, that's the main thing to take away from that is we can't say we know all the inner workings of everything, but it's always about action, precedent, and outcome. Look around, right? I mean, even Donald Trump, like you can argue they're going after him, but what actually happens? Now, maybe it's because he beat him off. That's certainly possible. Or maybe it's because there were never really any intention to actually have him go to jail. This is what we keep seeing in a lot of different ways. My point is, if you wanted to go after Trump, for example, why not charge him for extrajudicial assassination of Soleimani under the guise of diplomacy on an international airport? Like things that they could really nail to the wall if they wanted to. But they don't. They go after things that are subjective and even laid out in ways in the court documents that when you look for yourself and go, well, that was a dumb way to frame that. It's like meant to fail, I think, and it's the same kind of larger point of all of this is that you can see that this is unlikely to come to pass, and to your point about the child point. I mean, I referenced, I think the same thing today. This has been an important point. And I talked about this when this was the idea of whether Biden, as your point again, Pasta, any aspect of the government going back a long way, there's elements of this that are important to highlight, whether it's about foster care or CPS or exactly what they're highlighting. My point was, okay, now this being highlighted around, as we're focusing on Epstein is obviously, it seems like a look over here moment as much as it is a real point. But your point is obviously the most important to take away is that, okay, then where are people going to jail? I mean, and the same point goes back to the beginning. How about Fauci or Bill Gates or anybody, whether you agree with that or not? The point was that's what they were promised as people that believed Trump was going to do X, Y, and Z. Or anybody involved with, how about the Doge point? Every day we got a new claim about they're robbing Social Security. Okay, where are the people going to jail? Or the examples came out and they go, oh, it's a holdover of somebody from the last. Okay, then, in the last DOJ, then why didn't they get arrested? That's what Bondi made the point about. And the old, it never ends. So obviously the takeaway, the outcome, the precedent is that never get arrested. They never go to jail. It's all a bunch of narrative. And as Pasta points out, it's a partisan back and forth, right? It's easy to play the underdog and go, they're hiding this when you're the one over here. And you actually know that both of you don't want it to come out, and then they swing back the other way and they do the same thing. It's a never ending cycle. But again, my point is that it's failing. People aren't buying it anymore. In a way, I think it's because they sort of used the conspiratorial mindset to kind of they thought they could kind of trap and corner that and use it for their benefit. I think they just opened a floodgate of people that are now willing to, guess what, question everything. And yes, in some cases they assume, they blindly go into the direction of all conspiracy and go, if they're lying, if they're saying this, the opposite is true. And that's the same thing in reverse. But I'd rather them do that than blindly trust the government. And so the point is that I don't think they put that genie back in the bottle. Yeah.
100%. Hey, Craig, I think did you guys see the Trump announcement of basically officially saying that Obama has committed a crime here? And have you
personally?
Seen this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He said
Okay.
I personally did it.
Okay. I'm gonna put this up because Craig hasn't. We haven't shown it on our show yet because we kind of talked through it, and if anybody watching right now has missed it, this is the actual press conference, and it's pretty hardcore. I gotta say, if this was pre-planned. Or even a bit of damage control, he definitely hit this one out of the park as far as the getting the reaction he wanted, which is, I think, distracting us from Epstein. Here it is.
Perspective, who should the DOJ target as part of their investigation? What specific figures in the Obama administration?
Well, based on what I read, and I read pretty much what you read, it would be President Obama. He started it. And Biden was there with him. And Comey was there, and Clapper, the whole group was there. Brennan, they were all there in a room. Right here, this was the room. This is much more beautiful than it was then, but that's okay. I have nice pictures up that came out of the vaults. They were in there for 100 years. This is much more beautiful. We have the Declaration of Independence now in the room, which wasn't here. I guess people didn't feel too good about putting it here, but I do. But you know what? If you look at those papers, they have them stone cold, and it was President Obama. It wasn't lots of people all over the place. It was them too. But the leader of the gang was President Obama, Barack Hussein Obama. Have you heard of him? Except for the fact that
do you see the WWE mentality of this whole situation, the way he even talks and stuff? It's all meant to be divisive, to keep you in this two-party illusion, right? That's what this is about more than anything. And I said this before. They are working for the same people. There is no difference between AOC and Donald Trump, plain and simple. We saw this the other day with AOC's vote to continue to fund Israel, right? They serve the same masters. But it's just that they want to keep the divide and conquer and people in the two-party. Donald Trump is the same thing as Bernie Sanders. His whole existence was to make sure that he sheep-herded people back into the two-party system. Sorry, just have to mention that because this is what fucking president talks like this? This is just
and the setup of the room too, like the way they did it with Bukele. Anybody who's seen the way this, who's seen it going on for years and now watch the way he does it. It's its own little show. And let's be clear about the main point. There's nothing legitimate, or rather, let's say, official about this. He's just saying things and people go, oh, and then it rolls through the community and there's a bunch of articles and theorizing about it. I want to see something real. Here's my point from before is that if they were actually going to go after Obama, do you really think they would state it like this? They would make their case and arrest him and then go, we just arrested Obama. Here's the proof. Is the FBI involved? Is there any kind of case going? Maybe that's the case. But I think Gabbard and the whole thing she put forward is challenged by the idea that there's I mean, for all, Obama right now could jump on a plane and leave forever. You know what I mean? Like, I think they know that. So it doesn't feel real to me, but we'll see.
No, it's kind of watching that clip again, kind of was making my point that this is all theater, and Craig, you call it, I mean, it's all theater. However, devil's advocate, it is interesting that Tulsi, because she doesn't talk like that. She gets more to the point, and as National Director of Intelligence, for her to be making the rounds, she goes on Fox News and has a little more precise and focused, point to make here, and she's just as harsh. I mean, so I get there might be something here, maybe not, maybe it's just her role that she's playing. But let's look at this one real quick, and I'm curious about both your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sean. This is such an important issue, and I just want to start by saying that this is an issue that is important to every single one of us as Americans. This is not a partisan issue. It has to do with the integrity and the strength of our democratic republic. And it lays out this over 100 documents that you're referencing that I released, declassified and released, spells out in great detail exactly what happens when you have some of the most powerful people in our country directly leading at the helm, President Obama and his senior-most national security cabinet, James Comey, John Brennan, James Clapper, and Susan Rice and others, essentially making a very intentional decision to create this manufactured, politicized piece of intelligence with the objective of subverting the will of the American people, who in November of 2016 delivered a historic victory to President Trump, defeating Hillary Clinton. And President Obama and his team, their goal was to essentially not accept the decision of the American people and to use this manufactured, politicized intelligence as a means to enact what would become essentially a years-long coup against President Trump. You have gone into great detail over these years of what the effects of this document and this decision have resulted in. Obviously, a years-long Mueller investigation that cost taxpayers almost $40 million, 2 congressional impeachments, endless smears and attacks against not only President Trump, but his family. He had senior members of his team who were investigated, some arrested and jailed. We had heightened and increased tensions between the United States and Russia. The list goes on and on about the consequences of President Obama and his senior cabinet members politicizing intelligence once again, and I say these words very clearly, to enact what was essentially a years-long coup, subverting the will of the American people in that election in November. Now, you referenced this.
Okay, so that's her, cutting to the chase, not doing all the fancy, smancy Trump theater stuff, but it's out there. It's there. She put the files out. We've known all this. Ryan, you mentioned there was some stuff in there that is new. I haven't looked closely enough at it to see. Is there? You're saying there is some new stuff in there? Does that change anything, or no? It's not.
No. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't materially in any way change what we understood about this. But
yeah.
And again, I was not privy to as many documents as she's putting out there about what the reality is. Listen, I mean, so my point is just like with the JFK point or anything else, they can dump a lot of documents in front of you. Many of them may very well be new. It doesn't actually change anything that matters to the case.
Right.
So that's what the point is that you can look at all that. And if you had never seen this before, it's compelling.
Yeah.
You look at it and go, yes, it's clear there was a manipulation. That's what I'm saying. So there's elements to it that might be new. It doesn't change the reality of it. But my thing that stood out to me is it's interesting. Like, I remember, I'm sure your audience remembers, I think, from the last talk. Like, I do not believe, not the same as saying that it doesn't matter if you're forced to live in a state of society, which we are, but I do not believe today that your vote translates to the outcome. I think that's provable. Wait to listen to Pasta's interview with Clint Curtis. He'll tell you the same, right? I mean, it's clear that there's elements that show you that we have been subverted as a country in regard to voting for the outcome. So if that's the mindset, and please don't take my word for it, but consider it, then you have to think of it from that view, right? When they say not accepting the results or, a coup. So how can that happen if we're talking about one entity? How does that make sense if we're talking about a government that uses partisan politics to keep you in this game? So just think about it, right? And so if that's the mindset, it's interesting. But let's just pretend for the sake of conversation that it is two parties fighting each other. The idea of the words they're using, like not accept the results. Isn't this just like that's why they're saying reverse Russiagate, or even just reverse, it's the same multiple other elements of election stuff where it becomes we're not accepting the results, or Trump is claiming they cheated and now it's they're the one. It's how long until this becomes treason or insurrection. Like that's where, and arguably you could make a fair case about that. But the point is, this is about trying to create that momentum. And my original point is the same, is that I haven't seen anything official. They're just still putting documents out on Twitter and talking about it in the media. I think that it wouldn't have gone this way if they were really wanting to arrest this person. You know what I mean? Like why he would be, if right now, if everything they have in those documents is the case, why isn't he arrested?
Yeah.
Right now. Like somebody explain to me why he wouldn't already be in handcuffs. It doesn't make sense.
That's a great point. I love that point, because that goes back to the long list we all went through earlier. And you mentioned mRNA. You're like, this is, it's so like, if the thing is bad, if we have all the evidence, what are we waiting for? And you got people go, oh, it takes time. He's got 4 years. Give him some time. And it's like, when it's ready to go, you go. Why are you waiting? So that's another example of that. It's a great point. Yeah. Why not? Hey, Obama, you have the right to remain silent, like right now. But we're not seeing that, obviously.
Or the worst of the use of the word coup. I just think these stand out as, clearly you could argue that, right? And I wouldn't even dispute that. Like, I think that's, but again, my original point, I think should carry, think about that in the context of how I don't think over the years they've ever shown you that they're the same thing. But the coup aspect is interesting because of the larger points that I'm talking about, that at a time right now, whether through Epstein, which is, let's be clear. Oh, and back to your original point, I did want to say that Epstein and like to the list and the sex part of it, I agree with both Whitney and Burmis that that's not the real issue. That is a means to an end, right? That's the mechanism used to hide the larger problem, right? But it is still wildly important to recognize that they were manipulating, whether children or young teens or adults through this sexual blackmail network. It's clear that it happened, but it's about, there's weapons trafficking, there's, eugenics, transhumanism, technocracy elements, but also just the basic point that's it's actually about the control of politicians through this sexual blackmail, right? That's what it really comes down to. And so it all kind of comes back to the idea of whether that in and of itself is the evidence of a larger coup. And these are all just moving parts of petty politicians to gain more power in the moment, while they're not even really in control of what's happening. All these are things that people can, I hope you will dispute, but look into it. That's all I ask. Look at the evidence.
There it is. That's the old school Ryan CRISTIÁN. You don't have to believe my work. Just look at the evidence over here, and then you make a decision for yourself, buddy. I was like, wow. Yeah, for a guy in the independent news is telling you to think for yourself. Mind blown. The Tulsi thing, I can't really put my head around it too as well. I obviously have a history with Tulsi. I remember the time where Tulsi, she was doing an event in a libertarian, a libertarian who lived up in the Hollywood Hills over there at his house. And she's standing on a coffee table. We're all around. There's about 100 of us. And she stops and she's like, you, and points right to me and goes, where were you for the workout today, Pasta? You said you were going to come. And I was like, I wanted to stay home and watch the Jets. And she's like, all right, I'll remember that. You know what I'm saying? I had a cool relationship with her. She followed me, sang happy birthday, saw her. But more importantly, she opened up the floor to us and let us. Every single rally she had a press gaggle, and she seemed like the only one that had a spine or was really the peace candidate. And to see where she's at right now, what's that?
Sorry, I said when it worked for her. Yeah,
when it worked for her. That's what I'm saying. She's, you know what I'm saying. And but if there's anybody you're going to accuse of playing 8D chess, it would be someone like her. You know what I'm saying? Not Donald Trump. I don't know what she's doing now. And it is disappointing to Rabbi Shmuley to kind of, and she doesn't really like love on Israel so much. She just hates on Sunni extremism. And that's like that can be considered worse, because then she's manufacturing consent to bomb Gaza, to bomb Lebanon, to bomb Syria. So
which is counter to her original anti-war stance. It's not one side versus the other. It's that war is bad and shouldn't happen, right? It's clear. Yes. Like I think that she was clearly like I shared your hope for her. I as much as in the beginning, me, I was like, I don't trust politicians. I'll never, it's going to take years of nonstop following through with what they have to say, which never seems to happen before I start believing in any politician again. But I always hope, right? Massey, I hope, right? I hope that and then she spends the entire election telling you Clinton's a monster and then endorses her. And I'm like, well, there you go. Right. I mean, it's like, that's no principle right there. I don't care about the argument of, well, you got to take one side. Oh, he would have been worse. I don't stand up and say I'm endorsing none of them then, but they know that's not how the game works. And now, and so even then though, I'm like, well, maybe she just rationalized that choice. But today, I don't know how you don't see, how we don't look at this and either acknowledge that she is either being forced to do these things or challenging everything that she claimed to stand for. Same with RFK. And this is why I can't help but at least consider that there's some other driving force around all of this that makes them willing. I mean, even Trump at this point, the one that I keep hearing from people that support him is, why would he do this? He's committing political suicide. And I'm like, well, that's a good question, but don't let that stop you from acknowledging that it's happening. My point is that clearly these people are doing things that are against their interests, against American interests. And there's one group I can clearly see that it's in the interest of, but I don't think it's only that. But I think it's very clear here, and I'm talking about Zionists, Israel, not Jewish people at large. But I think it's really crazy to me that it's so obvious, back to that black hole point, that it's just, like, let's even say for sake of conversation, for those that might have thought of this before, let's just say it's China. I can wrap my mind around that. I don't think the evidence is for it, but I mean, shouldn't that matter that you have a government that's like, to the obvious degree, manipulating through all sorts of outcomes, what our politicians can do, Anyway, the larger point being is that now they're in this position. They're in a very obvious, proudly Zionist administration, as Trump will tell you, the most Israel-supported administration in history. Yeah. And they're all being guided by things that seem to contradict what they built their careers on. That speaks for itself, I think.
Guys, I have a heart out. It is now 5:30, so I have to go. I have some responsibilities. Take care of mom. Take care of some friends. Thank you, Ryan, so much for coming on. I was going to jump on with you this morning, was the original plan, but I saw that Derek Rose was there, Gordon Dimmick, so I kind of just sat back and let you guys ride. But it's always a pleasure talking to you. We have to get together, talk some more stuff. I have some exciting election integrity news. Tomorrow, I am taking off to Chicago in the morning, so I will not be able to do my show tomorrow. I'm taking a day off of drive time, but every single Wednesdays at 4 p.m. Eastern, ladies and gentlemen, come join Drive Time. It's a call-in show, Greater New York, huge audience, just a fun time. It's really one of the funnest things I do. Tuesdays or Thursdays, I will be on the Homeless Left because it looks like we're dancing in and out. Mondays and Fridays, Truth Wire with Fiorella Isabel. Thank you guys so much. I love you. I'll speak to you guys soon.
Thank you, Craig.
Good to see you
next time. Well, Ryan, if we have you for another 15, that would be awesome, because I'm just wanting to finish this convo. You mentioned about this, whether Tulsi is being forced to do this or if she does not liking it, and this idea that we're talking. I mean, she's literally bringing up this language again that we, about cooing, and we know this is, and our audience knows, and you're right on the money on this. Like, we understand it's a uniparty. It's a fake system. This, they're trying to stop us. We got to stop them. And they're using the judicial system against us. So we're going to do it back to them. So the whole thing is all theater. However, I do see when Tulsi's doing this, I kind of almost see a gleam in her eye. Like, she gets to do the thing that works. She knows this works. And it's kind of nice for her to be on the other side and not this punching bag on the left, where she, had put so much of her own blood, sweat, and tears to be, considered on that stage, and then be just kind of brushed aside and called. And she was called. I mean, let's remember. I mean, even though it's theater, it probably doesn't feel good that Hillary Clinton was calling you a Russian asset, and you're a traitor to the country when you served in the military. So, like, obviously that can go to a place where now she's on Fox saying we got to get justice for this thing that was done to our president. I bet she's liking that. And we're not thinking anymore about her telling us that Iran didn't have any nuclear capability. Right. And then she got overridden by Trump. So I think she likes being in this power seat. And it's true. There are MAGAs that are forgetting about Epstein now, and they're listening to this and they're going, oh, that's right. The Democrats made shit up about us. And now it's time that they pay. And so that's, there's definitely that glee in her eye here. That's what I'm seeing. I mean, this is, and I think this might be working as far as getting the audience's attention and distracting.
Yeah. What's interesting in your point there is that I can see that. I mean, because again, I think we've made it very clear. there's valid points to be made here, right? So it's not like, imagine you're in her position, and whether it's what I'm saying or just that she's trapped between the Trump administration, like whatever it is, and then she can't say what she wants, to be able to sit there and be like, real crime, let's go after it. Like, yeah, I imagine that's probably refreshing when you're constantly trapped in a circle of lies. I mean, it's the same thing we're seeing with pretty much everybody in his administration, from Noam to Bondi to Eggset. Like, they keep getting caught lying. The judges from conservative or liberal judges, I think it was 1 in 3 of them are saying that they're, it was something like 40+% of the things they presented to courts in regard to immigration, they're being caught lying about, or altering it, or deceiving the court, or, making things up. And or even Bondi, for example, was, she basically being charged with trying to force people to lie about certain things or cover things up, or people have resigned because of it, or she fired the ethics people because they were like, well, that's against the law. Like, I don't know whether these people are just dishonest or they're being driven to do so because they're in the presidency and they aren't going to say no to the president. The point though is that they must be refreshing to be able to do something that is at least somewhat honest. But the larger point is still the same. And I'm glad you brought up the Iran point, is that we just went through this.
Yeah.
I mean, she says something that is, you can't misunderstand it. And it also aligns with what the former administration has said, what the International Atomic Energy Agency said before and currently, that they're not seeking that weapon, right? And then she comes out and goes and posts that video and says they're taking me out of context and sides with Trump. I'm like, okay, so she's willing to, same point I'm making all day. She's willing to make herself look that stupid. She's willing to side and state something she knows we know is wrong to maybe side with Trump, or I don't know, maybe more. It's about Iran, the nuclear point. We know where that comes from. I mean, it's interesting, not to always bring it back to that, but I think what's interesting is that clearly she's already exposed herself to be willing to lie for Trump. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's hard to take this face value. But to your other point about whether it's working, yeah, I mean, it always does to some degree. I mean, look, we're talking about it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, either way, there is a level of like, this thing takes some of the conversation, some of the air out of the room, to whether, the people that are like not the blind follower influencers are buying it. I think there's some of it. Yeah. I mean, I think there's a huge portion of them that would take whatever you handed them that made it look like he wasn't the guy. You know what I mean? Because they really want to believe in Trump. And I would argue most of them probably for good reason, or good intentions. They want the good things for the country that aren't happening. And so they hope that Trump will follow through. But I think it's a come to Jesus moment for a lot of them right now. It's just, it's not happening.
Yeah. And it is clear 100% that Tulsi is she's willing to do anything, compromise her moral integrity, whatever her next order, whatever her next assignment is. She's like, I'm there. And even if it includes, and let's not forget the humiliation ritual part of the fact that she had to concede to Trump was right before that. He said on record, I don't care what she says. It's not what she says doesn't matter. Oh, so you don't care about your director of national intelligence? No, not really. So that going through that even, and now she's here. I'm sure this is much easier for her to do this Sean Hannity interview than to be told that she didn't matter just a few weeks ago. It wasn't even that long ago, like a month ago.
And what message does that send to her? So in her mind, okay, well, if I ever come out and say something that challenges what Trump said, then I look like the fool. Yeah. The entire MAGA base dismisses me. Everybody he calls me a moron. And so what do? And some people would stick with their principles. Most politics would go and fall in line. Yeah. Path of least resistance.
Exactly. So just back to the Maxwell thing, because you mentioned this earlier, and we're seeing conflicting reports on what's going on here as far as her engagement and how that's going to look. Mm-hmm. The only one I was able to grab was this, and I don't think it's still kind of vague, but I know it's coming from Benny Johnson, but it's saying that Pam Bondi is the one that will be meeting with Maxwell to expose the truth about Jeffrey Epstein. It's an unprecedented move, but it could have either been part of the plan the whole time, or this could be part of the damage control, or a little bit of both, regardless of how or when this is going to happen. What can come from this? How the hell, Ryan, no matter how this goes, how the hell are they going to spin this to your original point, which everybody knows? Why the hell is she up for charges on something that you just told us doesn't exist?
Yep.
How the hell do we spin this? And what kind of deal could be made from this situation, whether it's damage control or whether it's by design?
Yeah, well, I mean, the spinning is, it's interesting. Clearly, the only way you can ever keep going forward with these things as a partisan is to just pretend like that just didn't happen. Even though Trump seems to be like aggressively staying with that argument, it's clear that if every step they take in this direction is then showing you that what he's saying right now is false. I find that to be just ridiculous. But, you know, the point, first of all, to the tweet you showed, unprecedented. What in any way is unprecedented about that? Of somebody meeting with somebody to find testimony that might, I just laugh at the cheerleading of that. Everything they do is the best thing ever by the Johnsons and Jones of the world. It's just, well, I will give, you know, Jones at least gives you lip service around it, but Benny just seems to be like a clapping seal. Anytime anything happens, like, well, it's the best thing ever. It just makes me laugh.
I think that's perfect. The clapping seal is perfect analogy. I love it.
Yeah. But so the point about the Maxwell thing, you know, it's so again, what the point to refresh it on is that so originally she's in jail for trafficking, right? And again, there's other things going on, but there is a charge for trafficking, which means there needs to be like you can't charge and prove someone trafficked if there's not a person on the receiving end. That's the charge is the you know the transaction. And so the problem here is that now that Trump said it's a hoax, where you know a problem, it depends on who you are, but now the lawyers are saying, okay, well, we have an appeal. So you're claiming the president just claimed it's not real. So we're going to get the motion going. I argue they probably already know that I would argue there clearly is evidence and they know that. And so this is a card they're playing. So they're going, okay, well, guess what? We can make her talk. Right. So now that you just opened this door, now you need to give us something. So that's why they're coming around the side, because the truth is this shouldn't be some backdoor deal with Bondi. This should be something that is testimony taken by the investigatory team. Right. So it's on the record. But that's why you're having people jump in, or I shouldn't say I know the mindset, but saying, let's get her in front of Congress. But so here's the interesting thing. The Jones today is telling you that, well, that's the Democrats are going to get her to lie about Trump. Well, how could you possibly know that? But if she's going to be standing up in front of Congress, I would much rather have her being sent there at the behest of Democrats or rather just by anybody who wants to there. It's not just Democrats who want her to testify. Tota's Massey. And so you're going to step in there and you're going to give testimony publicly versus taking in the back room and having Bondi and you talk. Who knows what you decide. And then, as Whitney pointed out, coming out and giving you testimony that might have been changed by whatever deal you made. You know, to me, one is very obviously the better direction. And that's the one being shouted down by the team sport politic MAGA people by saying it's because they're going to trap you. I mean, you don't know that what she's going to say is going to implicate Trump. You don't know that. But so now it's being set up in that way. So right now we're in this limbo state, right? Where I argue it makes most sense for Ghislaine's team to say, okay, well, let's deal with the government. Because what they want is to get her out of jail. That's all they want. They don't want you. They don't care about the truth. She's the criminal, right? So if they can make a deal, they will. And I guarantee you that will benefit the team that wants to cover it up and Maxwell herself. And even Whitney points to a movement of people that are trying to like free Ghislaine Maxwell, like make it somehow she's like like she was played by Epstein and she's the victim in all this. Like there's a part of that within the Republican side of this. So where it goes, we'll have to wait and see. But I think the evidence, guys, it's already there. Just like Russiagate, you already know the reality of this. You already know. Just look. Stop being blinded by your partisan, team and just look at the evidence and how they've acted. And again, the fact that Trump is literally in the moment proving to lie to you. How is that not enough?
Yeah. And don't let him rewrite history either with this Democratic like psyop that's not real. And don't worry, Epstein he's just a dude. He killed himself. Any other big thing about a list or any other thing, that's all a Democratic ploy to make me look bad.
Yeah,
we know that the Democrats have been covering for this the whole time. They have been gaslighting. They have been punishing. They have been manipulating, maneuvering. Around Epstein and all the child sex trafficking problems we've had in this country for years and years. And I can tell you from Hollywood, we got to remind people that when a movie like Sound of Freedom comes out, it's Hollywood that gaslights it. They say, don't see it. It's a QAnon piece. They don't want people talking about this. So beyond Epstein, I think we have a massive problem. And this is the key. And this is why I think Epstein is the key to getting more people in a real populist movement from both sides, because this has to be that moment where you go, if both sides are protecting this issue, both sides, it's not, and again, it's not about Epstein. It's about this idea that there is this underground child sex trafficking ring that elites just don't want you to know about. And they want to keep it going. And that's it. Elite.
No, so elitist, right? Because elite implies they're better than you. Elitists means they think they're better than you, right? That's
great. Yes. Yeah, more exact, elitist.
Right.
They don't want us to know about it. It doesn't, D's and R's and blues and reds don't matter. It's the elitist class that do not want us to be talking about it, know about it, and they're going to punish people who go too far with their asking of questions, and they're going to make examples out of them. And so what are the chances that this could be a turning moment if enough MAGAs stay on this and don't leave, Don't get distracted. Don't forget about it. Stay on this. And enough people on our side, as far as like that, we've left the Democratic Party and we're saying there is a problem here, that they don't want this stuff to get out. What are the chances that we can start a new kind of movement behind this from a populist point of view? Or are we just going to go back to business as usual? It's going to be back to red team versus blue team. We're all going to forget about this.
Yeah, I mean, that's always possible. I mean, I think that's always an attempt because that's worked for so long. But I think we all sense, and the kind of the point that I'm making, that you can't really put the toothpaste back in the bottle. Like it's people are seeing through it. The people are questioning things they've never questioned before. So I think what we're going to get most likely is the shoe I've been waiting to drop for a long time, which is not the real pop like movement you're talking about of the third party. That's what might actually happen if they do nothing, but the manufacturing of that. And America Party from Elon Musk, for example, or, technocracy AI will save us from all of the crimes. It's like, that's what I sense coming. And I don't even know if that's going to work. I feel like it might be a moment where, as much as it will be chaotic and it will feel like everything's crazy, I think it's a positive step of process to get beyond this, to not buy the narratives and to recognize that that you are the person who makes your own decisions, not some party, not whatever the team said that day. So I think it's going to be a difficult road for them to put it back in. But I think either way, I don't think we're done with the, false binary of the two, but the same idea with 3 or 4, the same thing the UK has, right? I think that game is going to continue, but it depends on what we do, right? It's about self-responsibility to actually see something change and stop falling in line with these things, And I'll end at one point, and then I do have to break off, is that, you pointed out the suicide point, right? I mean, it's crazy to me that so they've clearly shoved the conversation over to the list, right? But then that's just as problematic for them. But are we pretending we don't already know that do we already forget the Trump administration, Trump himself rolled out the idea that he killed himself? I mean, nobody thinks that, especially the conservative side, right? And if you look at the evidence, even the autopsy, what's his name? I forget the autopsy, the doctor, but he said it was the hyoid bone. He said it's not possible. Like, this is not how that went. This was evidence of something else, or the bottle that's on the bed supposedly that was left upright when he supposedly jumped off or whatever, or the material that they say, so again, he's in a room designed to stop people from being able to do that. Then he was put on suicide watch on top of that. And we're going to pretend that he was able to do that with material that apparently is not able to, that it's supposed to tear so you can't kill yourself. Then we're told that the cameras were off mysteriously. Oh, they all fell asleep. Oh, but wait, here's a video. Oh, oops, but we censored 2.5 minutes out of it and didn't tell you that. And we pretended like everything was okay. All of this has happened, right? Or the video itself proving many old lies about the story that you can watch and learn for yourself. It's just, they have lost control. And I think that's obvious, but I'm glad that people like you and the show you're doing and the good work you're doing, that we can talk about this, that we can get this in front of people. But, again, we're self-responsibility. Keep the momentum going. Don't fall in line.
Yeah. Ryan Christian, the last American vagabond, your original fighting the power, fighting this, fighting the censorship industrial complex, all of this stuff that kind of, we're calling for a movement of everybody coming together. We're all on the same side. Fighting this crap, and you've been doing it for so long. Thanks for setting such a great example for us here at the Homeless Left to live up to this level, because it's a fight every single day. You do such a good job, and we really appreciate it. Where can people find you, and what do you have coming up?
Thanks, brother. I appreciate that. And I'm glad to be here. TheLastAmericanVagabond.com is the best place to go for everything. As always, don't let these platforms be the conduit between you and our information. Whether, I imagine you have a website, right? Go to the Homeless Left, right? Don't let them be the dictate what you see. Upcoming stuff, I'll just shout out, Derek has the People's Reset coming out. So he runs the Conscious Resistance, but he's also a member of the Last American Vagabond. And he is People's Reset. Is kind of a counterbalance, like a response to the Greater Reset. It's about the other direction. And I believe that's January 28th off the top of my head. But just check out, I think it's still thegreaterreset.org is the website. Originally, it was the Greater Reset, but it was too close. So it's now the People's Reset. Derek put a great article out today for T.L.A.V. about the biometric shift that's happening in Mexico. A lot of good stuff coming. But just, keep questioning stuff, guys. Question everything. Check out your independent media. Support your independent media. And looking forward to talking again, brother.
Awesome. Thanks so much, man. Appreciate it.
Okay. Have a good one.